I'm very glad to be with you, even online. I would be very glad to be there offline, but maybe next time. So greetings from Vienna. My paper is, or my presentation is based on one paper, which is really huge. So I try to be somehow reductive and hope that in this reduction, I will not lose my main objective and red line. If so, we have also at the end this Q&A section, and we can try to, I try to answer then your questions. Any comments and suggestions are welcome. I start. So what I will do, kind of outline, theoretical and methodological considerations about notions such as neighborhood and neighbor in city context will be very short-featured. Then I introduce the district of Schinkel, specific history of population composition. Different phases of districts will be illuminated in forms of tales. This is part of my methodology, and I will come to this later. What really in focus, residents' perceptions, valuations, and interpretations about their place of residence comparatively to their birthplaces. So why comparatively? Because as you already could hear from my research project title, I'm working predominantly with migrants and predominantly from former Soviet Union, but I'm not limiting myself by this and try to discuss it later with you. So some statistical data. My research site, city of Osnabrück, lies in Lower Saxony, northwestern part of Germany. It's not so really huge, big city. And the district, which is my focus for this paper, is called Schinkel. It has 40,630 inhabitants and 8,360 are migrants. 1,414 persons come from former Soviet Union, so about 10%. It's very diverse. And it's typical migrant district and so-called arrival district because of infrastructure. I will talk about this also later. So shortly about my theoretical methodological approach, I'm using, among other things, not only this, but among other things, a methodological approach from John van Manen and working with tales. So he differentiates between realistic, confessional, and impressionistic tales, and I'm quoting: realistic tales provide a rather direct, matter-of-fact portray of a studied culture, unclouded by much concern for how the field worker produced such a portrait. Confessional tales focus far more on the field worker than on the culture studied. Impressionist tales of the field are personalized accounts of fleeting moments of fieldwork cast in dramatic form. They therefore carry elements of both realistic and confessional writing. And also in my case, I'm mingling, I'm playing with this realistic and impressionistic style of writing and tales. This presentation and this paper is based on 4 months of ethnographic research in 2021 and 2022. And I'm using mix of methods. Besides participant observation, I'm using situation analysis, field diary notes, and thematic, but also biographical interviews. Then informal conversations play a big role. And besides this, I made in this year local media analysis newspaper, Lokale Neue Osnabrücker Zeitung. So because I wanted to analyze the first decade arrival condition of migrants from former Soviet Union for so-called Russian Germans and quota refugees, contingent geflüchtete Jews from former Soviet Union. Then I could analyze family photos and private letters. In the course of the field research, 28 interviews were conducted by me in 3 languages, German, Russian, and Georgian, and the interviews were transcribed. In particular, emphasis lies on people from the former Soviet Union, as I already mentioned, group that migrated to Germany in large numbers in the early 90s. In contrast to many contemporary works in Germany, so it focuses mainly today on this new migrants after so-called migrant crisis in 2015. But in my case, I try to work or focus me on this so-called old, better integrated migrants from former Soviet Union, because I think that this relationship, state-citizen relationship over the decades and their experience matter a lot to understand the current realities in Germany. And we see now, unfortunately, also with ongoing political processes, how important it is to analyze former Soviet space. It's unfortunately. So as we are predominantly social anthropologists, I will not go very far in detailed analysis of meanings of neighborhood or the figure of the neighbor in social anthropology. But however, I somehow depict the direction which I take and ideas which I take from my analysis. So I understand neighborhood as a word which refers not only to people, but also neighborly space. Authors point to high mobility and mutability of neighborhood spaces over the course of time. Not rare, it's space where one feels social and morally safe and secure. Neighbors are referred to as one household or one big family. Then again, there are the ethnographies and historical writings that document conflicts and outbreaks of violence, up to and including the act of killings of neighbors. And sometimes the neighbors just don't matter, as Susanne Fellings, for example, very nicely shows in her work. Shortly, the neighbor turns out to be a paradoxical figure, to quote Slavoj Žižek. So I will talk about background and the migration history of Schinkel. And therefore, I try to read something from my field diary. I'm quoting. I sit at the table in the living room and listen to the background noise, to the music of my new surroundings in the Schinkel. The street where I will live for 3 months almost borders the station. One can even hear the platform announcements. The street here is much louder than mine in Essen, city in North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. One can hear loud, lively conversation in various languages. Balkan music reaches me from passing cars. Turkish, Bulgarian, German, Russian, and Arabic are spoken in my immediate neighborhood. I hear all this at my desk in my new living room. It's a strange feeling to hear Russian so often from outside. I honestly have not heard this much Russian since my childhood in what was then Soviet Georgia. End of quote. Statistics from the city of Osnabrück, local government websites, newspapers, and all interviewers describe Schinkel in the same way. Schinkel is very diverse. Poles, Portuguese, Italians, people from Turkey, Bulgaria, and Russia, meaning USSR, live here. One interlocutor eloquently described Schinkel as follows. Schinkel is migration. However, this diversity of the neighborhood is perceived and interpreted differently, and not necessarily in a positive way. So this district has very bad image, is stigmatized, marginalized, criminalized, in media discourses, and also from outside perspective, from people who don't even were there, but these images are very strong. History of Schinkel district begins in the 20th century, when several farms with over centuries of tradition are incorporated, and from then on belong to the city of Osnabrück. Schinkel is a neighborhood very much characterized by industry. Large companies and factories such Karman, Klöckner, and Kabel Metal recruit in 60s guest workers from Portugal, Italy, and Turkey. Worker settlements emerge. But what I would also mention is this contrast phases of a district, contrast tales, so to say. One can read this district geography, so to say, along ethnic lines, because we can, from my interlocutors, we can talk about Balkarian Triangle, Anatolian settlement, Kosovo's hard corner, but also along beyond this ethnic line, along social economical conditions. So we can find here old Schinkel, dignified Schinken. One can live Schinkel, tight conditions, and due to the pandemic, also stronghold of the pandemic. And there is also one a very specific description. In German, it's Laubenpieper, and it's about people who are very concerned about green spaces. So we can say here something similar what Professor Humphrey also said with this intuitive, how these people perceive their living spaces. We have different faces and different tales from the city. And this is arrival district because of arrival infrastructure, because of railway station in the vicinity, immediate vicinity. But besides this, in addition to industrial history and related migration, neighborhood is characterized also by religious diversity. There are Protestant and Catholic church and mosque in immediate vicinity, Ebat Allee in Schinken, jokingly also called as Holy Corner. I'm not able to talk about green spaces, but what I do now, I represent, I present the perceptions of so-called local state, and I understand as Italian at all. These are the actors who are very active and play kind of mediating role between residents and state on several levels, so in municipal or national, countrywide. And I focus on one institution, a science fiction house, which is such an actor, youth gathering place for many diverse migrant groups. And we have their very specific face and tale, which I took from this institution. It's the ghetto. So we see on the first picture this painting from 90s, and it was kind of logo and motto: out of the ghetto straight into the paradise. And we see that this aim is not finished yet. So we have this rubbish and typical ghetto buildings in this district. But as I already mentioned, it depends street by street. And tale was that it should be neighborliness, togetherness, not kind of parallel societies, but really togetherness. In the second part of my paper and in my presentation, I try to show another kind of places, which I call places of transgression. And these are not only grocery shops, but I will focus only on grocery shops. Besides this, it could be church, for example, or allotment gardens for such kind of translocal ethnography. This is very specific. There are specific places to transnational and translocal words, and this is so-called Russian shop. I visited two of the shops often. One of them was a shop located in Schinkel, and I was there 1 to 2 times a week for 1 to 2 hours each. And participant observation in this place enabled me to better understand interpersonal neighborly relations. It was cozy. Conversations were familiar. There was a lot of joking and laughing together. Russian was predominantly spoken, but not only, as it was also Polish. You could hear their Georgian, Kyrgyz, Kazakh, etc. languages. In each such regional design shop, I found, for example, newspapers and flyers from former home migration countries depicting and messaging the latest political events or lifestyle trends. And I present here one such of lifestyle trend magazine, Ayvalit. And it's interesting because these suppliers are all of former Soviet space, from big cities such as St. Petersburg or Moscow, but also from such small villages as Butri in North Caucasus or Tuapse in Black Sea region. And as you see, the products are also really diverse. Armenian brandy, Georgian food stuff, matryoshkas, etc. Then and these places of transgression are for me places where you can really good see how this translocality and transnationality works, and flows of ideas and peoples and goods and mediascapes. So another thing is comparing ideas, ideals, and reality, all the new neighborly relations. And there is where I'm working predominantly with migrants from former Soviet Union, as I already mentioned, predominantly with so-called Russian Germans and Jews from Soviet Union, but not only. I was also strictly involved with migrants from Georgia, for example. And my question was how this all the ideas of togetherness and neighborly relations shape reality and their notion and perception. Which kind of neighborhood Schinkel could be? Is it bad? Is it good? So to say. I'm not able, unfortunately, to quote from these interviews from persons with whom I talked, with whom I told here, Greta and Anastasia. But what was important, let me see, I'm lost in my papers. So despite other negative aspects of life after migration, migrant women see Schinkel as a good place to live, where you can knock the door if you need help, and where people are happy to talk, even if the language is not spoken enough. And it was very interesting observation, because he's very in very good relations, for example, with refugees from Syria. And when they have not enough capacity to speak German, then they use new technologies such as mobile handies for translation. It's also very interesting how these new technologies are involved in this building processes of social relations. Some concluding remarks, I read it. I hope I tried to reconstruct a possibly diverse image of neighborhood in its different facets and controversial narratives about this place in a short framing time. The history of the neighborhood was explained from several perspectives, and emphasis was placed on different forms of local memories and perceptions on several local actors. And I followed the question, which past was relevant for whom and why? Then the media and populist discourses that very often describe migrant neighborhoods as problematic places, I try to foreground this emic perception of the residents about their own environment. I found that all the respondents who live outside Schinkel and had little to do with neighborhood believed in the bad image. For those, in contrast, who live here, Schinkel represents a perfectly acceptable and truly positive place to live and socialize. It is a matter of personal characteristics if you are introvert or extrovert person. Last but not least, Schinkel is a highly exciting place to observe transnational and translocal activities, the place where borders and boundaries become fluid and where one can experience diverse flows of goods, ideas, and ideals from elsewhere. And these places are so very interesting or very important exactly for migrants from former Soviet Union, because they are nowadays not organized in another NGOs or migrant organizations. It was the case in the past, but not nowadays. And this is also interpreted in several with several perspectives. For German sides, they are not interested. It's somehow negative perception. They are not there because they are not interested. But for migrants, it's the case of already experience, and they found their ways to communicate with state. And this is somehow this experience, which is very interesting for analyzing state-citizen relationships. Thank you very much for your attention. Why I'm showing this picture, it was also made for me, especially in Osnabrück, and I'm proud to demonstrate how it was also for me to be there and transform myself or immerse myself in these processes. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that I'm good in time.
Thank you. You were very good in time, basically, but we started later than planned.